Hey everyone, it's fantastic that you've joined us this evening. If you're watching this and you're not in a Connect group, I strongly suggest that you get into a Connect group so that you can really digest this with the people in your Connect group. Well, we're on the next part of the Gospel of John. It's been a fascinating book so far, and we've taken a couple of weeks to get up to this chapter, John chapter 3. And we see a really interesting character come to meet Jesus at night. His name is Nicodemus. He's a Pharisee, which means he's dedicated his whole life to studying the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. And he is not only dedicated his life, he teaches what is known as the law, the Torah. And he comes to Jesus and he says, listen, we know you are from God. And Jesus says, listen, if you want to even see this kingdom I'm talking about, you must be born again. And it must have shocked him, Nicodemus. He's probably sitting there going, what do I mean I must be born again? He's dedicated his whole life to almost pleasing God, to being in right standing with God. And now he's been told he must be born again. Let me give you like a modern day example of what Jesus was telling him. Imagine Lionel Messi, who is arguably one of the greatest footballers, won the World Cup, won multiple trophies. And it's like saying to him, he's dedicated his whole life to learning and playing football and winning these trophies. Listen, you must pretty much start again. Like you start right from the beginning. It must have been a complete shock to Nicodemus what Jesus was saying, because to be born again is not something you can do, it's something you receive. Jesus is saying, actually entering my kingdom is something you receive, it's not something you earn. And that's the first big thing that Jesus tells him. And then we come across the most famous verse in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And it's probably one of the most well-known texts in the Bible. In fact, even non-Christians have heard about this text. And what Jesus was saying to Nicodemus is just, this is something you receive. And it's something that God was fully involved in. Right there, you see actually the whole Trinity in this passage. See that we must be born again of the Spirit. The Father sends the Son, and the Son is by whom we receive and have everlasting life. And it's almost like Jesus saying, listen, Nicodemus, God has got a whole new plan of how we get to him. In fact, it takes all of God for this to happen. It takes a whole Trinity involved in rescuing humankind and bringing him back to God. And the Father sends the Son. And when we receive Jesus, we become born of the Spirit. And I love the last point that we see in this text is that it's actually all motivated by love. Why is God doing this thing? It's because of love. And I don't know if you've just ever sat and just contemplated just the absolute love of God. I think we must never forget that the Christian story is actually a story of love. It's a demonstration of how much God loved us. And for Nicodemus, firstly, this must have been a shock that in actual fact this is something he received he couldn't earn. Secondly, it must have been a shock that actually this is all of God's great rescue plan. But thirdly, it would have probably moved his heart that this was an act of love from God. You know, if you read Nicodemus' story, it doesn't appear in any of the other Gospels, but we only see him 3 times. We see him this time coming at night. We see him in John 7 almost defending Jesus' movement, but then we see him again right at the end of the gospel. Jesus has just died. It's probably in the afternoon. And this is what happens. Nicodemus comes and he takes Jesus' body. But now he comes in public. He comes in the light. He brings aloe and myrrh, which were used for kings, and he brings a large amount and he wraps Jesus' body. And the contrast with Nicodemus shows that he was truly born again. There was something different about him. In the first instance, when he comes to Jesus, it's at night, it's dark, it's undercover. But in the end, it's public. He doesn't care what people think. And he gives Jesus a burial that's fit for a king. Something happened in Nicodemus' life, and this is what happened. He was born again. He fully understood that the kingdom and who God is has to be received. The gift of salvation has to be received. And this is God's great rescue plan motivated by love. And so I really trust that you have an incredible discussion around this topic and around this character of Nicodemus. And I'm trusting that for those of you who don't know God's great rescue plan, that you would understand that it's motivated by love for you. And so we really trust that you have a fantastic evening or whenever you meet, and we'll see you at the next one. Cheers, everybody. Okay, done.